In this video, we're going to be taking a look at creating a CorelDRAW macro, or really a series of macros, to automate a particular task that I wanted to automate. Now, a quick little caveat to this video, I don't really know anything, or I know very, very little about VBA programming and making macros. And you might be asking yourself, well, why are you making a video on creating macros if you don't know how to create macros? Well, I'm doing it because, number one, I hacked my way through and I was able to create my macro the way I wanted it. It does everything I need it to do. And um, if I'm a novice and I can do and create something, then, and you're a novice, then it's a lot more easy for you to relate and say, you know what, if that guy could do it and hack his way through, maybe I can hack my way through of what I need to automate. So I just wanted to walk you through kind of my thought process and how I was able to successfully complete my macro. So let me show you kind of what it does. So right here I have a macro, so I'll create text block. And what it does is it just creates a block of text for me. Okay, so I do a lot of woodworking plans, and I use CorelDRAW to make my woodworking plans. And each of my woodworking plans needs to have a title, needs to have my phone number, needs to have my website, whatever information you want it to have. And so I wanted it to automate the process. So you can see here I'm a ½ inch in from the page, at the edge of the page, and a ½ inch down. Okay, now this is portrait. So what if I went to landscape? That was the next thing I needed it to do. I needed it to place that block of text a ½ inch in from the border, top and right side. I needed the text to be right justified. And notice that there's two different sizes of text. I have 24-point text and I have 12-point text. Okay, so I needed all these very specific parameters, and I needed that to work no matter what my page size was, because I'm not always probably going to be using letter size paper. So these are the things that I wanted it to do. So what I would do before I created the macro, what I would do is I would open up an existing document where I had already placed the text block. I would just copy and paste it from one document to another, and then I would just kind of manually put it here in the upper right hand corner where I thought a ½ inch was. That's what I would have to do. So now I just click a button. Like, it's way, way simpler. And if you're using CorelDRAW, there's probably a million things you'd love to automate. Certainly I've created all kinds of macros. And when I say I've created, that's not really true. But I have hired people to create lots and lots of macros. I could do some pretty amazing thing with the macros that I've created. If you want to just see something that I've created, if you go on YouTube and look up Easy Stone macro, now that macro was developed over a period of many years, used many different developers to help me create that product, but it allows me to do rhinestone designs here inside CorelDRAW, and it automated a lot of the process that we would use. So macros can be extremely useful. Okay, so at any rate, that's what our goal is. I want to show you how I kind of hacked my way through and how you can hack your way through if you don't know very much about VBA. So let's go ahead and begin. So I do have my macro manager open, and if you do not, you can go under Tools, Macros, and there's your macro manager. The other thing that we're going to need is we're going to need this toolbar here, which if we right click anywhere in the gray space here, you can turn off macros and right click and turn it back on. So we do need that little toolbox there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a placeholder for our macros. So we'll hit File, New here, New Macro Project, and let's call it My Custom Macros. So all of our macros are going to be stored inside of this file. So there it is, and then we're going to create a new macro. So we're going to hit the Record button, and we're going to call it Create Text. Okay. And where do we want create text to be stored? Well, we want it to be stored in the My Custom Macros folder. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. And then you will see that we now have a new macro called create text. Now it's still recording. So we're going to grab our text tool and type in the first thing we want it to do. $5plans.com. There we go. And then I'm going to change my font to Arial. I'm going to change my font size to 24 because that's what I want. So there it is. And then we're going to need a second line of text, of course. Title, placeholder here. And then finally, need help. Please call us at 913-940-9808. And that is my real phone number. And then, tell you what, let's do that. Let's do this. Please call. Let's not call us at. Please call 913. Yeah, you go. I like that better. All right, and then I want to write justify it. Okay. And then in a perfect world, this would also be 12 points. There we go. Okay, so that is kind of the first step in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop. Okay. And so now it recorded everything that we just did. Now, that's not really entirely true. It recorded everything that it could record. It doesn't necessarily record everything that we do. So that's one thing that's kind of a drawback because there's certain limitations as to what it can actually record. So, yeah, that's a problem. So let's just click on create text and let's see what it did for us. Not a whole lot. You can see here we do have a piece of text. It says text, but we don't have any of the justification. We don't have the font size. We don't have the font type. There's a lot of things missing that it did not do. It did not record. So let's go ahead and right click on that and choose edit and see what it did for us. Now you're going to see that VBA code is pretty simple. I know this looks kind of complicated, but if we read it, you'll see that most of it is just garbage that we don't even need. So you can see here it starts out by declaring a variable of S1 and making that a shape. And then it says to set the S1, that S1 variable to active layer, and it's going to create artistic text at a specific position. And then this is the text that it's creating. It literally just says text. So it doesn't say $5plans.com, blah, blah, blah. So let's go ahead and change that to $5plans.com, right? Now, in theory, if we run this again, it will tell us, it'll show us $5plans.com. And now here it's saying that the fill color should be black. That's what that line says. So it's saying S1, which is what we declared up here, which is S1 is the active layer, and we created some artistic text. We're going to fill it with black, and the reason it wants us to fill it with black, because if we didn't define something, then it would be whatever the current default fill color is. Same with the outline. If we didn't tell it don't have an outline, then it just would use whatever the default outline is if there was one, and that's not obviously what we want. So the next bit here, it says set viewpoint, and then we have a move command, and then viewpoint, 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 and then another move command, another move command. Well, we don't need any of that. We do eventually have to move it, but we have to move it in a very specific position, not some kind of random amount here. So let's go ahead and delete all that stuff that we don't need, and now we're just left with this. So now, if I delete that, and I click on Create Text, well, we've got one step closer, haven't we? So we have our first line of text. It says $5plans.com. Excellent. So what do we need to do now? Well, let's go back in the code here and take a look. So what we need to do now is we need to figure out how do we tell CorelDRAW in VBA code to create a second and third line of text. Well, we don't know how to do that. I certainly didn't. I do now, but I did not know how to do that in the beginning. So how do we do that? Well, let's go jump out here to the old interwebs and let's just type it in. So we're going to go AI VBA. So we're calling up the old AI bots. And then what do we want to do? We want to do a carriage return. Carriage return in CorelDRAW. I always add anytime I'm asking it for VBA information in CorelDRAW, in CorelDRAW, in CorelDRAW, because sometimes the VBA information we get is general VBA information and not CorelDRAW specific. So if you read what it tells us here, it's actually some really good information. So it tells us that this VB clear CRLF is a predefined constant in VBA that represents the combination of a carriage return and a line feed. Okay, this is the standard new line character sequence used in Windows operating systems. So it's pretty useful. But what I find that it's kind of interesting is it actually gives us some VBA code, and it gives a very specific example. So you see here it says my string equals first line of text in these quotations, and then the ampersand sign, this ampersand, and the second line of text. So that is my carriage return right there. And the biggest thing here is that our text string, each line has to be within quotes. Okay? So if we come back over here, and right after this, we hit space, right? And then title placeholder here, quotes, and then again, and quotes, need help, question mark, please call 913-940-9808, quotes, and then we have our bracket. Okay? So now, if we click on Create Text, in theory, there is our 3 lines of text. Well, that's pretty cool. That's what we need. Okay? So that's good. There is our 3 lines of text. Now, the next thing that we really need to do is we need to change the justification to be to the right. That's step 1. And then we also need to define very specifically what the font should be and the font size. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at this. Let's go ahead and choose Edit. Let's look at this code again. So back here it says set S1 active layer, create artistic text at a very specific XY position. The first string is going to be this, carriage return. Our second string is going to be that, carriage return. Our third string of text is going to be this. Excellent. Now, this is the part where VBA, some base knowledge of VBA can be useful. And, you know, the truth of the matter is, when I first created this macro, I spent several hours because I didn't know anything about VBA. Now that I know a little bit about VBA, well, now obviously the next time I go create a macro, it's going to be a lot quicker. So what we need to do is we need to change our font, the font, and we need to change the font size. Okay. Well, there's a variable here, or I guess I don't know the proper terminology. Maybe it's probably not variable, but anyhow, if we come up here and click in here, okay? And we choose quick info. Let's click on that. So we're in this line of code here, and we say quick info. Give me some quick info. Whoa, look at that quick info. So it's saying create artistic text. Left is double, bottom is double, text is string, CDR language, character sets, font as string, interesting. Size as single, interesting. And then we can do bolding and all kinds of stuff, underlining, right? And then here's alignment, right? Alignment as CDR alignment, mixed alignment as shape. So even the alignment is in there. I didn't actually know that the alignment was in there. So we could possibly set our alignment in here as well. Now, this is the part that you got to kind of just study here. These are all the different options that are available to us. And you can see there's quite a few different options here. And alignment is one of those. But you see here, they're all set here by a comma. Okay? So you can see here it says font and size. Okay? There's two things here, font and size. Okay? So watch what I'm going to do because I don't know. So see when I clicked on this, it says text string. Text string. That's still part of my text string. And then this is still part of my text string, right? And you notice it's highlighted. Okay? Now we need to get to where it says font. Okay? So language is 1 comma. Okay? There's 1. And then character set is 2. And then font as string is 3. So what am I talking about here? Well, let me show you. So we're going to do 1, 2 commas, and then we're going to go Arial. Because remember, it said the font was a string. Okay, and then we're going to do comma, and we're going to do 3. Okay, now you notice here it says there's an unexpected compilation error. And what that basically is saying is we can't have it outside of that bracket. Okay? It needs to be, when we're doing this stuff, it needs to be 3, but it needs to be inside that bracket. Okay? Now, in theory, what should happen here is we should get this text in Arial 24. Sorry, 24. But I want to see if this is at the right position. How do we do that? Well, we go back into Quick Info and we click here. And notice what's highlighted. The character set's highlighted. Okay? So we need 1 more comma. Okay? And so now, if we go back in there and choose Quick Info, watch what happens now. Now we click inside of Arial. And now you see that font as string is highlighted in black. So now that's properly defined. So now we need, so we've done the size already. And so now we need bold, comma, italic, comma, underline, comma, to get all the way to alignment. So we need to get to alignment. So let's back up here. So we did bold is 1, italic is 2, underlining is 3. So after our size, we need 1, 2, 3, and then we get these options. We're going to have to go one more because we need right alignment. Okay? And now you'll notice that that is highlighted now. Pretty cool, huh? So now what should happen, in theory, is we get our font, our preferred font, no matter what the current font is. So there's our current font, there's our current size. And then we're going to go ahead and create our text. And there you see our text has been created and the preferred font is used and the preferred size and our justification is to the right. Okay, so that's it for part 1. I hope I didn't bore you to death. But what are we still yet to do? Well, in part 2, we are going to be changing this last line of text. We need to change to be 12 points. And then we also need to change the position to be a ½ inch from the top and right, no matter what our page size or orientation is. That's what we're going to take a look at part 2.